Another creative form is basket making. These baskets are on display at the Alaska State Museum in Juneau. Natives from southeast Alaska made baskets from two different materials. One was the stringy inner bark of the cedar tree, the other was the spruce root. It was more difficult to make baskets from the spruce root. In fact, it took years of practice and a lot of skill to be able to make those baskets. Today, they're highly prized and very expensive. And like a lot of skills learned from an earlier age, fewer people today are making these baskets. But this is a skill that may not be lost because Northwest Coast basket making is still being taught.
Really, bark and basketry entered into every phase of early life where if you didn't know how to weave, you really were not in, for instance, if a girl didn't know how to do basketry, there would be very few people who would want to marry her because all of the things that they used, like the baskets for berry picking, the baskets that they plaited for carrying fish in, were all very important to everyday life. Traditionally, they never wove except in the spring. And I've read that in several papers that the women didn't weave except when it was raining. But my mother didn't seem to pay attention to the rain. She just wove whenever she felt like it.
And it was from her mother that Delores Churchill first learned basketry. Today, she is one of a few prominent native basket weavers in Southeast who shares her knowledge in classes and workshops sponsored by the University of Alaska Southeast or by various museums and culture centers. Some of the instruction techniques Delores Churchill uses today were developed when she was assisting her mother teach classes.
The museum invited Mother first to teach a class at the museum, and that's how she started teaching. I helped her at the museum several times, but she mostly went there by herself in the early days. She'd have as much as 20 and 30 students, and the way she taught, it would take them a month to do a basket because she taught traditionally where she would just stand there and weave, and the students stood behind her and just watched. Then they would sit down and weave the basket, but it would take a month to do one basket. We devised this method, which is not a traditional way of learning, but it's a faster way of learning. You take a red piece of red cedar warp, we'll call that the warp, and the yellow cedar weft. And what you do is... We don't go into basketry immediately, we just take a piece of red cedar bark, hook it in, and just practice the technique of weaving. Once they learn that, then they go to the basket and start weaving. So they're only learning one thing at a time. They're only learning the basic weave, and then when they get to the basket, they learn how to add to the warp, but they already learn how to add to the weft with the practice piece.
Cedar bark and spruce roots are some of the traditional materials of Northwest Coast native baskets. Various weaving techniques can provide a texture to the basket, while dyed roots and grasses can provide colored designs. Part of learning basketry is the gathering and preparation of these materials. Early spring is the best time to harvest bark and roots.
If you're this late in the year, you'd pick a place where there's horsetail and the fireweed, not this real heavy grass.
In spruce root gathering, you really can't, in southeastern, there are only a very few places that you could gather. You need a place where there's sand, glacial silt, where the roots shoot out straight without, you know, if it hits rocks, you don't want a kink in it. As I mentioned earlier, spruce root has a memory, and if it has a kink, you're going to have a hard time straightening it, so you want real straight roots. A long time ago, they used a digging stick and just had a stick that Mother used to use that, just use a stick that you pull with, but this is great. Then as you take it out of the ground, I usually take my glove and run it back against the grain and take all the little things that'll come off. But if there's one that won't come off, it'll come off in the fire, so that I don't pull it, because if you pull it, it exposes it to the flame when you cook it. You just build a large bonfire and get it very hot. Then you just take a green stick that you break off, but usually an alder tree, and you put it in and cook it in the fire.
I'm pulling here? This way?
Yeah, hold this and pull it. Okay, pull.
Oh, look at that. Oh, wow. Good. Oh, it's slippery.
So the next thing is do you see this root canal? And where the feeder roots are coming out of this root canal. You'll go right along that root canal, cut right alongside of it. After you have taken the outer bark off, that very same day is really the best time to prepare all of your roots, because then you get nice white roots. But if you don't have the time, then you just split them in half and put them away until you're ready to use them. You're doing the same weave. The only thing is you're pulling 2 back, you're going over 2 and under 1.
And then the next time I take it from this far one here.
That's correct. You pull that back, pull the one that's on your far left.
Okay.
And go to ones.
Yeah,
So,
I was
yeah.
trying.
Okay,
I just
so-
hadn't gotten all the way.
Okay, so you'll now do it.
Okay.
So this one. The warp are the spokes that stick up, and the weft are the weavers that go in and out of the, what you'd call the spokes. That's the warp. And you have 2 weavers, one going over the first warp under the second, and then going back and using the next one. So it's a half twist. The weaving is not a complete twist, but a half twist. The most difficult part of learning to weave is that you're using both hands, but you're using the fingers, not like you would with typing where you're using them constantly, but you're only using the index and middle finger. It's very, especially with the left hand, I find it's very difficult with students to learn to use.
Don't get discouraged when you're...
Doing basketry is really addictive. You just don't want to put it down when you're weaving. You just want to keep weaving because it's so peaceful, and you don't worry about anything when you're weaving. It's such a joy to weave. And what is really encouraging is that I've been teaching for so many years, and now finally there are some young people really interested, and their children are learning it. That's very encouraging. I worked as an accountant, and I made a lot of money, and it was really fun to do. It helped my children, you know, reach maturity where I could support them in a way that I wanted to support them. But now I'm doing basketry. It's not really, I don't make a lot of money, but I think it's very self-satisfying. I love to walk in the woods, and I think that harvesting in the woods and being able to see the forest the way my ancestors saw it gives me a feeling of continuity with these people who came before me, and I have a real strong feeling of self and identity with my own people, and a real understanding of how they wanted to keep the environment and live within the environment without destroying it. I have a real feeling that I want to do that.